Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Denise Avila, and in today's chapter presentation, I'll be going over chapter 1, what is deviant behavior. So what is deviant behavior? In 1965, J.L. Simmons conducted a study that found that amongst the public, there is a good deal of disagreement as to how to define deviant behavior. Our understanding of deviance is tied to several factors such as the political climate, social climate, our own specific beliefs or practices, economic conditions. So, for example, if someone were to grow up in a very conservative or religious home, they may find things such as gay marriage, prostitution, drugs, all deviant for sure. This chapter covers the two opposing perspectives on deviance, the first one being positivism, which is associated with the sciences such as physics, chemistry, and biology. And the second perspective is social constructivism, which has the fundamentals in art, language, and philosophy. And then we also have the integrated theoretical approach, which is a borrowing of both perspectives. The first perspective I'm going to be covering is the positivist perspective, and it assumes three things, which is absolutism, objectivism, and determinism. And I actually like to remember this perspective by using the acronym AOD. So AOD, perspectivism, assumes A, absolutism, O, objectivism, and D, determinism. The first assumption that I'll be covering is absolutism, which is deviance that is absolutely or intrinsically real, meaning that they hold characteristics or attributes that inheres in a deviant person, which make them distinguishable from conventionality. Under this assumption, sociologists have abandoned the use of biological and physiological traits to differentiate criminals from non-criminals, and have more so recognized the important roles of societal factors which can change across different periods and times. Sociologists also focus their study on deviant behaviors and deviant people rather than non-deviants who label others as deviants. The next assumption under the positivist perspective is objectivism, which is deviance as an observable object. So here the deviant person is studied objectively, and it is more important to concentrate on the subject matter as it outwardly appears. Ideas of deviant behavior should be subject to public test and supported by other facts through the use of official reports, statistics, clinical reports, and etc. The next assumption under the positivist perspective is determinism, which is deviance as determined behavior. So here, the deviant behavior is caused by force beyond the person's own control, and sociologists also commonly will not attribute deviance to free will. Now we move on to the next perspective, which is the constructionist perspective, and this also consists of three assumptions, which is relativism, subjectivism, and voluntarism. And again, I like to use the acronyms RSV, R for relativism, V for voluntarism, S for subjectivism, and V for voluntarism. The first assumption we will cover is relativism, which is deviance defined as a label. And so here, if there is no deviant label, then there is no deviant behavior. So as the book mentioned, deviance is socially constructed, meaning that deviance can also be in the eye of the beholder. So if one person sees weed smoking as deviant, another person may just find weed smoking as their daily lifestyle. Constructionists study deviance by focusing on the nature of labeling and its consequences. And an example of this from the book was the huge lack of consensus on criminality amongst law enforcement. So this means that laws can vary from state to state, and the behaviors defined as criminal in one state can be different in another state. And one example I thought for This specific example is the age of consent in different states. In some states, it is 16, in other states, it's 18. So, you know, that could be defined as a deviant behavior depending on what state you're in. All in all, deviant behavior is defined by the societal norms or the given societal standards. The next assumption under the constructionist perspective is subjectivism, which is deviance as a subjective experience. Here, behavior is studied as a subjective personal experience, so it's more about the person being defined as deviant rather than those on the outside, those non-deviants defining a deviant. Here we also recognize how the person defined as deviant is also a conscious feeling, thinking, and reflecting person. Methods such as ethnography, in-person interviews, participant observations, those are all used by constructionists to study deviance. The last assumption under the constructionist perspective is voluntarism, which is deviance defined as a voluntary act. And here it is seen that deviance is an expression of human volition, will, or choice, and that humans possess free will and choice-making abilities that determine their own behavior. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the integrated view, which is a combination of the positivist and the constructionist perspective. So here we can integrate both views by defining deviant behavior alongside with the public consensus in mind. There are two types of deviance defined, which is the higher consensus deviance and the lower consensus deviance. And the higher consensus deviance is often studied by positivist sociologists, while the lower consensus deviance is frequently studied by constructionist sociologists. So the higher consensus deviance would embody things such as murder, rape, armed robbery, any serious crimes like that. And the lower consensus deviance would embody things like drug use, prostitutes, adulterers, things that aren't necessarily arrestable, I guess you could say. I think it is also very important to recognize the clear distinction between what a deviance is and what a crime is. As the book explained, most deviances are not crimes. Deviances merely depart from the societal norms or rules that make these deviant individuals a little bit of an outcast from society, I guess you could say. An example of this would be people who are, let's say, strippers, people who are emotionally disturbed, just people who aren't automatically already accepted by society. On the other hand, crimes are violations of formal norms, which are the laws that we live by every day, whereas deviance is a violation of an informal norm that derives from the popular beliefs that we are so comfortable in. And that wraps up my presentation on chapter 1, what is deviance. Thank you everyone for watching my video, and I hope you guys have a great day.